Hello and welcome to today's episode of TUC Half Hour. On the program, we dive into key issues affecting labor, industry, and the workforce here in Nigeria. I'm your host, Vice Osui, and today we have an important discussion lined up, touching on policies that affect the workers across Lagos State. Stick around. TUC Half Hour will continue after this short break.
Comrade Gbenga Ekundayo, a passionate advocate for positive societal transformation, has been serving as the chairman of the Trade Union Congress TUC Lagos State Council since May 2019. Known for his forward-thinking leadership, Ekundayo is dedicated to advancing workers' rights and promoting progressive change across Lagos State. With a specialized background in process control systems, Ekundayo combines technical expertise with union leadership. He holds a BSc in Physics with Electronics from Lagos State University LASU and an MBA from the University of Lagos UNILAG, alongside professional training in instrumentation and control. His career within the energy sector has equipped him with invaluable insights, making him a respected voice in labor advocacy. In his earlier roles, Ekundayo was the pioneer chapter chairman of the Deepwater Chapter MPN branch of Pengasson and later served as vice chairman of the same branch. As former state secretary of TUC Lagos, he has consistently championed workers' interests. A member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, he also brings a commitment to constructive conflict resolution and collaborative labor relations.
Welcome back. Today we'll be looking at the consequential adjustment to the minimum wage, a critical issue for many, and how it is being addressed at state level. We will also explore the important work that the Lagos State Trade Union Congress is doing to protect and improve welfare of workers across the state. Joining me virtually to have this pressing conversations is Comrade Gbenga Ekundayo, the TUC chairman for Lagos State. Comrade Gbenga has been a leading voice for workers' rights across the state and is ensured that it is met with determination and vision. Thank you so much, Comrade, for joining me on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now let's delve straight into today's conversation. Comrades, the minimum wage and its consequential adjustment have been, pressing issues and pressing conversations. And I'd like to start by understanding the progress made and challenges so far. So if you can share an update on that, what's the current status and how are conversations with the state government progressing?
Thank you very much. I think following the enactment of the minimum wage at the federal level and also the national JNC going with the government side, working out the consequential adjustments across all the cadres. What we've done in Lagos State, we first wrote to the state government and we followed up with the actors in government, and they assured us to do what is proper. You would recall that recently Mr. Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Olusola, was on the TV on channels where he pronounced a minimum of 85,000. That was, well received as minimum that any worker in Lagos State should earn. But on top of that is now for us to go into the further discussions to look at the application with respect to the different cadres from grade level 1 to 17 and make sure that the adjustments are done in line with what has been done at the federal level. Now, we'll be looking at the table, the consequential adjustment table, and what we've done in Lagos State is, okay, our comrades in JNC, comprising of all the labor unions in the public sector, we've asked them to come together, x-ray those, the consequential adjustments across all the cadres, and that is ongoing right now as we speak. Once they've gotten to a considerable level, they've looked at nitty-gritty, then we'll come to table, every one of us, that at that point, for us as Labour Center, we look through it together with them to see that nothing was left behind, and they were able to do justice to that and deliver what is appropriate to workers in Lagos State. And I'm sure they're having some good conversation at that point, because we keep having some back-end discussions to see how the discussions are going.
So technically, the consequential adjustment has not fully taken effect in Lagos State. Is that what you're saying?
Technically, not yet, because we need to be careful to look at the nitty-gritty, grade level by grade level, step by step, to be sure that the adjustments are properly done. I remember after the minimum, after the what do you call it, the negotiations in 2019, we had an adjustment table, which about a year down the line, we realized that there were some little amendments that needed to be done. So that took some months to correct those to make those little adjustments. We don't want that to happen again this time around. So we're taking time to look at the nitty-gritty to be sure everything is clean and straight. And we must thank even the state officials for being open and honest about the discussions so far. And we hope it continues that way. In the matter of a few weeks, we should conclude everything and we'll have the consequential adjustment properly available to be implemented in Lagos State.
Okay, great. So I just want to know, when the consequential adjustment was made, there were a few measures that were put in place, to help alleviate the plight of, federal workers, so to speak, during the transition period. And one of those is, financial support for federal workers during the transition period. Do you know if that has been carried out?
As at last month, to the best of my knowledge, Lagos State has not failed to pay the wage award. In fact, the first meeting that we had to broach the discussion, to open the discussions, where we all agreed that, okay, the meeting should go forward and the consequential adjustment should be looked at. We mentioned that the wage award must not cease until there's a new wage structure in place, and they give us all the assurances that won't cease. And I remember at that point, we also spoke about the need to quickly conclude so that we don't have issues about backlog of arrears and all that. And they assure that all that will be speedily dealt with so that those possible challenges are taken care of ahead of time.
Yeah. Okay, great. Now let's move away, slightly from the minimum wage and consequential adjustment, and just look at the activities of the Trade Union Congress in Lagos. We know that the TUC has been active on multiple fronts in Lagos. Could you let us in on some of the recent initiatives and activities that your team has led to drive action and support workers in the state? Just a few of them, if you may.
Even on the minimum wage, okay, there is discussing the wages, the salary that will be paid to workers. Besides that, we're also looking at the social infrastructure that is available to make life, bearable for workers and for Lagosians in general. Part of the discussion that will happen towards the end of this minimum wage discussion is for us to know clearly, for instance, the Health Insurance Act, which has also been adopted at the state, and there's the act at the state level. We need to know what level of premium the state is paying for their workers. And beyond that, it's something that we're looking at, working with the health insurance providers, particularly the state health insurance provider, to work across the length and breadth of the state, particularly with our members, those who are not under a health insurance scheme per se, to see how we can bring them into that net and also ensure that the scheme actually caters to the concerns, to the challenges that people may face in terms of health. That is there. We've also always been writing to the government with respect to public transportation to see how we can have meaningful transportation. And there's a lot that the state is doing. We can see the red line coming on stream now. In the coming weeks, we will be engaging with the Ministry of Transportation, because there has been back and forth on the comparison between the charges on the state-owned line compared with the federal line. So we'll be discussing around that to see how the cost of transportation in that regard can come down. We've also been speaking in the state even before now, which we also work on further. For the private let's say private public transport operators. I mean, public transportation being run by private individuals.
Yeah.
What is the state looking at? We've seen CNG conversion at the national level, but we're actually advocating beyond the conversion, seeing some challenges that could be with it right now. We're actually advocating, and we're going to speak with the state further on the possibility of, even if it's on hire purchase, bringing in CNG vehicles. I mean, CNG powered vehicles. That's vehicles that are manufactured from scratch to run on CNG. To see how we can bring those in and reduce the pressure, the burden of public transportation on people. Besides that, we are also discussing, particularly, we are working on the project that the Minister of Agri is working. We've been following up on what they do, but we're particularly interested in the red meat value chain, where they're looking at, I think it's Igbodu feedlot in Ekwe, where they're looking at cattle ranching and all that to make sure that there is dairy product and a red meat beef available in good quantity and at good price. The Lagos Business School experience was a very good one. It was the first time that the leadership of TUC at national level would take NEC members to the Lagos Business School for the leadership building training. And it was a good moment where you have training about, first of all, determining who you are, your characteristics, the quality, the value that you believe in, that you want to bring into what you do, which comes from the intrapersonal communication angle for you to determine what really are your values, the mission, the vision, or the goals that you're pursuing. Then they spoke about interpersonal relationship, communicating to others, making your members understand the direction that you're going, what it is that you're working on, and making them understand it and buy into the project and be able to work in the project to deliver the end goal that you're all looking at. And going beyond that is the leadership capacity to lead people, to understand people, perspective they're coming from, to be able to connect with what they want and be able to drive them towards what is needed, what is desired. And there's the emotional intelligence teaching part, which talks about beyond your IQ, to be able to understand people. In fact, first of all, understand your own feelings, know your feelings, be able to manage your feelings, your emotions, and then understand the other people's feelings and emotions, and be able to manage interpersonal relationship in there so that you can achieve the goal that you set out to achieve. In a whole, it was a wonderful experience, and we thank the President of the Congress, Engineer Festus Osifo, for leading the charge, for giving us the opportunity to learn at such level.
Okay, great. You mentioned two things that caught my attention, so I'm going to ask them separately. One are challenges that the union faces, over time when you're trying to do this negotiation, and the other one is collaboration with different sectors of industry. So I'm going to start with the challenges. I know that every advocacy has its hurdles. And so I wanted to ask you, I want to know, what are some of the pressing or most prominent challenges that the TUC has faced, across Lagos State, and how are they been addressed?
In recent time, the most, how will I say, the most biting challenge has been with the transport sector, where we have labor unions affiliated to the labor center, but you always have intra-union, misunderstandings and intra and inter-union misunderstanding, but we know how we manage them. Thankfully, we're able to, speak to the different sides to just hold on. That sector is a sector that is very volatile. And you always think about, okay, if you don't manage both sides to calm them down and they go out to do as they would normally do, it usually gets out of hand before the police can even, bring things under control. So that was particularly challenging, speaking with the different sides, calming nerves, and all that. And we thank God that, we were able to manage that without things getting totally out of hand. But I must, in other engagements, particularly with the state government, I think one must commend the Ministry of Establishment and Training, particularly the Department of Industrial Relations, because each time we wrote, there was always response to every letter written. Explanations provided where we needed to come together and discuss. They created room for discussion for meetings. That has been a lot helpful. Let me also put it here that what we've also noticed that a lot of departments, a lot of ministries, when you write them, you don't even get a response to your letter. That is, I mean, in that regard, there's need for improvement in Lagos State. When letters are written, people should respond to letters. If you don't respond to letters, how do we know what you're doing, what you're thinking, and how to manage the other side? But for the industrial relations, I would say, activities in there has been very good. So much of our interaction with particularly the state government through industrial relations have been very good, because there's always that, back and forth, which is good for the relationship in itself.
So that brings me to the second, issue that I spoke about, and that is collaboration with industries. So Lagos State is actually an industrial hub, like the industrial hub of the country, with workers across various sectors. And it's easy, to focus activities on workers in the government sector and the public sector, and somehow ignoring those in the private sector. How is the TUC, working to support local industries and ensuring fair treatment across, such a varied workforce in the state?
In 2020, that was during what you call COVID, when we had all the lockdown and all that, we had as State Council in Lagos, we had a webinar where we actually invited Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, because we know, they're in Lagos, like you said. Also NECA and a few other private sector, and the government also was invited. And at the end of that discussion, we realized that there was need for government to look at how to support even the private sector in the area of some tax holiday at that time, some incentive to keep the industries, to bring the industries back to life. Because if the industries are not back to life, how are they going to employ? How are we going to, how are you going to get maintain our employment? And then for every worker you see, this is what we keep telling government, for every worker you see, whether in the private or public sector, there are at least about 5 people that are dependent on that worker, whether the worker is married or not. In fact, when you're married, it is 5 people plus your wife and your children at the minimum. So in a country where the social security is not really there, it is the workers that have become the social safety net for those who are not employed. So we are mindful of that. So we try to carry along in our discussions, in our interactions, carry along the private sector. Like, for instance, I'm from the private sector, and I know the much that needs to happen from that perspective for your employer to remain productive, sustainable, and be able to pay you. So we come from that background to also explain to government that while we're running governance, we need, to take care of this sector. And I must say that, Lagos State has been, to a good extent, responsive to the things that we say about security and safety in the state generally, and working things out for small, medium, and micro enterprises and all that. And even now, where we are with all the downturn in the economy and the challenges, we are in constant touch with NECA particularly. And we are also speaking with them, even as State Council, to know, okay, at the state level, what can we do? Are you in the office? Can we, have interactions to know what goes on?
Okay, great. So looking ahead, would there be some broader goals that you hope to achieve in Lagos State? Do you see, are there anywhere or any places or sectors that you see room for improvement and progress that you're looking to, make changes for workers, in the coming years in Lagos State?
Well, for Lagos State, considering the population of Lagos State and the enormity of what has to be done, we've been talking within ourselves, and there are critical sectors that we're looking at that the state needs to take charge of. And we'll be speaking with the state, particularly with reference to those sectors. Energy, the state needs to look at energy provision in the state. Actually, we've reached out to the commissioner, but we are here to firm that up. We'll be looking at both petroleum products, making them available at good pricing as much as possible, and also particularly electricity. Thank God that electricity production now, generation is now, no longer in the exclusive list. So we'll be looking at what can happen. If you look at Obakran, for instance, and Ilupeju axis of Lagos, those are the places that you had industrial, estates beaming and thriving in those days. That's not what you have now. So we need to have, if there will be new industrial estates, that industries where industries can be, where companies can function, and there is 24/7 electricity provision there to keep productivity top notch. That's what we'll be taking to the government, and we'll be working with them on that to see how that can happen. We also look at food security for the volume of people in Lagos. So we believe that if we can take hunger out of the equation, a lot of minds will be unlocked, and we'll be surprised the brilliant things that can happen. So we are passionate about, food security in the state, and that's why when they launched the red meat value chain, we quickly keyed into it through our cooperative. We actually floated an agri-cooperative for TUC members in Lagos State. We also look at health. What we intend to do in the next few months is to look at population and look at how many general hospitals do we have? How adequate are they? What about the primary health centers? How many are there? And how well are they distributed around? What are the cases that need to be handled by primary health centers before you now go to, general hospitals? And how are those functional? This to ensure that if people are not hungry and they are healthy, then they can produce the wealth that we're looking at. Then security is a critical one. But what we've seen is that at the bedrock of security now in any city is electricity. If you have street lighting adequate at the nooks and crannies, then a lot of the, wrong activities that take place under the cover of the night can actually be tamed. So we'll be challenging them on that. And very importantly, the education of our children. The public education institution is in a state of serious worry. Let me just put it that way, just to be mild with words. It's such that is, despite the efforts of the state, if you consider the number of young people in the state, what we have now is still not adequate. And we'll be looking at that, especially through one of our affiliates, the Academic Staff Union of Secondary Schools, ASUS, to see what we can do in that regard and continue to challenge the government on what needs to be provided. By and large, we're speaking with our members to collate ideas, collate where, particularly those in the particular sectors, to see what can be done. And very important, before I leave this question, issue of transportation. It is good that we have the blue line and the red line. Those still cannot take majority of transportation in Lagos State. You still have to use a lot of the yellow buses. Okay, we've seen the proposed tax laws that are coming at national level. It is hoped that when that comes into effect, or before it comes into effect, we hope that the roads can be sanitized. Because if you go on public transport today in Lagos, you'll see what the average driver and conductor, what they have to face. Besides what they pay to the unions, there are levies that are collected on behalf of the state. Okay. And besides that, you also have law enforcement agents at different points collecting those things that you cannot even record or talk about anywhere. If you speak with an average driver, they tell you they are only doing because they have to go out. So, and on the long run, all this will come back to the commuters one way or the other. So we hope that we can sit together and work out a robust plan that can eliminate all these avoidable expenses on the bus operators, and also looking at how to, in a way, seek how to try and formalize that sector so that a lot of things can be streamlined. There is nothing wrong with a driver who has a clearly spelled out income on a monthly basis that is documented. There's nothing wrong with him being credit worthy to be able to access mortgage. We need to build a society where everybody, wherever you work, you can have a financial record that tells about your credit worthiness for you to have access to certain things that can make your life easy. So those are the things that we are looking at. And we've been talking to the state about this at different times when we talk. But we hope that we can get to that point where we can actually put a robust structure in place that can take care of these challenges.
Okay.
I would like to keep this conversation going, but unfortunately that's the much that we can take on the program today. Thank you so much, Comrade, for actually sharing this insights with me. It's inspiring to see the commitment to improving workers' welfare in Lagos State. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
TUC Half Hour continues. Don't go anywhere. And that's where we end today's episode. Thank you for joining today. Remember, TUC Half Hour is here every week, so join again next week. Also, stay in touch on social media using the handles displayed on your screen. I'm Faiz Osui, and I'll see you next week.